I'm going to be sharing a method of how I figured out how to do a seam on two pieces of lycra using a regular machine with a stretch needle and polyester thread, but other than that, no special features. Um, let's go. So here is the seam that I've done. It's pretty good, especially compared to the seams that I've done previously. So I'm going to show how to do that, mostly just for my own reference for the future. This is compared to the previous seams. You can see they're not the worst thing ever, but they're really not great. They're a bit lumpy and bumpy. And if you look at the other side, you can see that they're quite wonky. And I had problems with the fabric slipping, so there's little places where I had to kind of move the needle inwards again, which is not ideal. Okay, so the first step is to put the piece of fabric that you're sewing on right sides together on top of the fabric underneath. Then you want to put something really heavy on top. So I've just used a 2.5 kilo dumbbell. Fabric weights will also work. This just stops it from moving while you're like attaching it. Next, I'm going to do basting, or I'm going to put some little clips on it, and then I'm going to baste in 3 places: here, here, and here. Just a really loose running stitch, and I'll show you, that'll be better. So put a clip here and a clip here. If I had a third clip, I'd put one here. And now I'm just going to do a little bit of basting. Okay, so there's the basting that I've done. So what I've done, it's very simple. I don't really know if I need to do this much basting. It might be kind of overkill, especially now that I found the clips, but I just don't want to risk it. Like, I was having such trouble with things slipping around that I'd rather just spend a minute basting than an hour unpicking, you know? So what I've done is basically just a running stitch, and then somewhere in the middle I've done like a back stitch just to kind of hold it on, and then I've done this because it was also slipping sideways like this way as well as down. I don't really know how much, like, I don't know if all of this is necessary, but that's just what I've done, and I've done it in 3 spots, just because you want it, and it needs to be very loose, so that it can stretch when you're sewing, and so it doesn't cause any problems. Loose and like leave the ends raw, and just do like 1 back stitch per basting thing. Yeah, you just don't want this fabric to move apart from each other while you're sewing it. Right. Okay, next, sewing machine settings. So this will be very personal to your machine and how you're holding the fabric. So I definitely recommend experimenting. So what I did was this little swatch with just experimenting with different tension and different stitch length. Just like changing one and then changing the other just to see like the difference, because you basically don't want it to be too loose if you have too long of a stitch length, because then it will look weird, but you also don't want it really, really short, because then it's really hard to unpick and also just unnecessary, and it kind of bunches together and scrunches. So I just sort of experimented. I'm using just under 2 for tension and 1.9 for length, but that's just me. And there's my little like guide for the swatch. See, this painter's tape here, I saw a hack on YouTube, and it's really helped, because basically what was happening was the bottom fabric was moving faster than the top fabric, which meant that at the end it would be like basically like an inch off, and it was really annoying, and I kept having to unpick the seams. It's not too bad on this piece that I did earlier, because I unpicked the really bad seams, but you can see that yeah, it just wasn't working. So this painter's tape, what it does, you just want it like this, covering the front bits of the feet, or the teeth, so that the bottom bit of fabric sort of moves at a similar pace to the top bit of fabric. Yeah, and it's really helped. Okay, so putting the fabric in the machine. Now, this is going to sound really weird, but what happened was, even though like I'd fixed most of the problems, in terms of it like sliding sort of this way, but this side was still like sliding weirdly. So what I did was I was like, okay, let's try flipping over the fabric. So you know how usually you'd sew kind of like this with the most of the body of the work on your left side and then the rest on the right side. But I think I figured out that I think it was sort of the weight of the fabric from this side was sort of pulling it, so it would end up like slipping off, and I'd end up like my seam allowance would just be shrinking and shrinking, and I'd kept having to move the fabric back on. It was just looking so messy. So I figured, okay, well, if I try flip it, then I'll know whether it's because of the fabric or because of something in the machine, because I thought maybe, oh, it was this tape was like messing it up and making it feed it unevenly. But basically I flipped it over so that the bulk of the material is on this side. Now, obviously this won't work if you've got something really massive, but I'm doing things in sort of small chunks, and lycra's quite thin. And it is pretty kind of weird and uncomfortable to do, and it's got a problem, which is that this side doesn't have the seam allowance like stripes. So I've just done like a little pin mark there, which is almost invisible, which is where I want the seam allowance to be. But weirdly enough, it's really helped. It's made my seam like straight and it's not pulled. So yeah, so the final thing, which I can't really show you, but there's lots of people online that show how to do it as well, is when you're actually sewing, you need to pull the bits of fabric apart like with both hands. Unfortunately, I can't turn my camera around to be able to sort of film while I'm sewing, I don't think. I might try it though. But yeah, that's what you do to sort of make sure that it has stretch, because you're using a straight stitch, and so if you just did a straight stitch on the stretchy fabric and stretched it, it would just snap. So yeah. Okay, I think I've set up the camera. Let's have a look. Hopefully it actually works. I'm not just waffled for nonsense for a few minutes. Okay, so starting like this, and then I'll go back and do the top bit that I've missed, just because I need enough fabric to grip onto it. Oh crap, what the hell's happened there? My foot just fell off, but I reattached it, no trouble. Oi, 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 let's go. It's a bit annoying to have to feed the whole thing through here, but I've not seen people talking about this flipping over thing, and it actually worked. I don't even know if other people are already having the same troubles as me, but you know, someone must have. Anyway, a video for myself. Anyway, I'll stop rambling, let's go. So I want to pull evenly in both directions and then kind of hold it flat to the machine rather than pulling it upwards like that. Also not doing any backstitch stuff because I just had to take out so many seam stuffs. Not risking it. It's really hard to pull. Keeping an eye on that dot that I've used to be the seam allowance. It's slipping a bit, it's not perfect, but it's weird that it's slipping the other way, so I don't know. Honestly, it's so weird. Oh, cat. When you reach a clip, just take it off. Don't need that crashing into the machine. Yeah, it has slipped a little bit, but not much, and I think I can kind of easily pull it back, hopefully. I'm just gonna finish this and then come back. Okay, so when you're coming to the end, you need to kind of reposition your hands like how you're stretching it. Oh, Sonia, I swear to God, if you attack me. just looks so silly, like, it's such a weird way of sewing, but... Take the clip off. I don't know if this helps at all, but I was kind of holding it like this to pull it. I'm not sure if that's actually... Maybe, I can try. It's all very experimental. I find that I can't quite go to the end of the seam just because of the need to pull it. It ends up going a bit here at the end. So go as far as I can reasonably, and then sort of like maybe unreasonably. Okay, without back stitching, just move it off. Right, now let's have a look at the work. That is so much straighter than any of the seams that I did before I compiled this technique. Right, let's get the basting stitches out and have a look at what it looks like from the other side. Oh, I forgot, actually, so this bit at the top here, which we didn't do, I'm just gonna sort out the little, you know, the thing where you pull it through and then tie it up. I'm gonna sort that out. So from the other side down here, and then take out the basting stitches. I'm sure there's a way of like starting actually from the beginning. I've seen people do it online, but I don't understand how they do it because like I can't stretch when I don't know. Oh yeah, when you put it back in the machine to sew it the other way, make sure that you do the same thing with all the fabric on this side. It's annoying, but it helps the seam. Okie dokie, there we go. Finished the seam, took out the basting stitches. I have noticed that it's not actually entirely perfect. It still has this annoying thing where if you look overall, it kind of curves ever so slightly. I think that's where it was moving a little bit off the seam allowance, kind of inwards towards the fabric, so shrinking the seam allowance a bit, but it's much less noticeable than on previous ones, and on the grand scheme of things it's really not too bad. Plus I think, I don't know, I feel like the type, I'm using lycra for pleats. I'm making a pleated skirt, which is not what lycra is usually used for. Look how much worse these seams are, but so I think for like a seam that's meant to be worn on, like stretched out rather than kind of hanging loose like these pleats will be, I think it will be really great. And yeah, generally pretty proud of myself for figuring that one out and drastically improving my technique. So yeah, anyway, I think that's it. By the way, just to show off, here are, I mean, this is messier because I hadn't figured out the technique, but here is the pleats. Yeah, wish me luck. Finishing off this outfit in a very short period of time, but let's not talk about that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and that it was helpful. Bye!